The Galactic Empire's ambassador didn't walk into the United Nations Assembly, he glided. His crystalline robes caught the light from Earth's primitive fluorescent bulbs, scattering rainbow refractions across the faces of every world leader present. Behind his translucent breathing apparatus, his lips curled into what could only be described as a smirk. Your species has exactly one standard rotation of your planet to submit to imperial authority, he announced, his words automatically translated by the hovering orb beside him. We find your continued resistance both amusing and quaint. In the third row, General Diana Wu kept her face carefully neutral, even as her fingers tightened almost imperceptibly on her armrest. 23 years of military service had taught her the value of a perfect poker face. The alien ambassador's next words, however, nearly cracked her composure. We've analyzed your pathetic excuse for a space fleet. Primitive chemical rockets? Solar panels? The ambassador's laugh sounded like breaking glass. The Empire traversed 12 galaxies while your ancestors were still discovering fire. The assembly erupted in outraged murmurs. Wu glanced sideways at Dr. Chen, seated 2 chairs away. The scientist's expression betrayed nothing, but Wu caught the slight tremor in his hand as he adjusted his glasses, not from fear, but from barely contained anticipation. Perhaps a demonstration is in order? The ambassador gestured gracefully. The entire ceiling of the UN building suddenly became transparent, revealing one of the Empire's destroyers hanging in the sky above New York. Its crystalline surface rippled with colors that shouldn't exist in nature, its size blotting out the sun like an artificial eclipse. That is one ship, the ambassador continued. We have thousands. Submit, and we will be gentle with your integration into the Empire. Resist, and dash, he snapped his fingers, and a beam of light lanced down from the ship, vaporizing the empty plaza fountain outside the UN building. Well. General Wu allowed herself a small smile. The ambassador caught it and turned his full attention to her. Does humanity's inevitable subjugation amuse you, General? Wu stood slowly, straightening her uniform. Not at all, Ambassador. I was just thinking about an old Earth saying, pride goes before a fall. Charming, the ambassador sneered. Your species does have such colorful expressions. We look forward to studying them in detail once you're properly catalogued in our anthropological archives. As the ambassador swept out of the chamber, Wu's secure phone vibrated once in her pocket. The message contained just 2 words, Phoenix ready. Her smile widened ever so slightly. The Empire was about to learn another Earth saying, never judge a book by its cover. Humanity had always been good at keeping secrets. And for the past 20 years, they'd been keeping the biggest secret in human history, buried 2 miles beneath the Antarctic ice. The Empire thought they were coming to conquer Earth. They were about to discover they'd walked into a trap 2 decades in the making. 20 years earlier, Dr. Chen had been a different man. Younger, yes, but also more naive about humanity's place in the universe. That changed on the day they found the ship. The Antarctic ice core sample was supposed to be routine. Instead, the drill hit something metallic at a depth of 2 miles. What they discovered would alter the course of human history, a crystalline vessel of clearly alien origin, preserved in the ice for over 100,000 years. It's not Empire technology, Dr. Chen explained to the hastily assembled UN Security Council. He gestured to the holographic projections showing the vessel's internal systems. The design philosophy is completely different. This ship was built for stealth, for hiding in plain sight. And whoever built it left us a message. The message had been simple but chilling, they will come. Be ready. Project Phoenix was born that day. Under the cover of routine climate research, 37 nations pooled their resources to build the most sophisticated research facility ever constructed beneath the Antarctic ice. The alien vessel became their template, their teacher, and their technological springboard. The Empire thinks they're dealing with a primitive species that barely understands spaceflight. General Wu addressed the project leaders in their underground command center. On the screens behind her, Empire ships continued their methodical deployment around Earth. That's exactly what we wanted them to think. Dr. Chen? The scientist stepped forward, his hands steady now as he brought up the technical specifications. Our fleet is ready. 50 ships, each incorporating the stealth technology we reversed-engineered. But we've gone further. The original vessel used crystalline computing, like the Empire does, but we discovered something they never considered: organic digital hybrid systems. The assembly stirred. 20 years of secrecy had produced technologies that even the ship's original builders hadn't imagined. Human innovation, driven by desperation and determination, had transformed alien concepts into something uniquely Earthborn. The Empire's sensors can't detect our ships because they're not looking for biological components, Dr. Chen continued. They don't believe in combining living tissue with mechanical systems. It's taboo in their culture. We, however, had no such restrictions. In the massive underground hangar, row upon row of ships waited in darkness. Their hulls pulsed with subtle bioluminescence, living metal that could adapt, heal, and most importantly, hide. Each vessel represented a perfect fusion of alien technology and human ingenuity. General Wu studied the deployment map. The Empire had positioned their fleet exactly as predicted, arrogantly confident in their technological superiority. They had no idea that Earth's apparent submission was a carefully choreographed deception. What about the crews? Someone asked. Are they ready? Wu's expression softened slightly. They've trained their entire adult lives for this moment. Some of them were recruited before they could even drive a car. They've lived with the weight of this secret, knowing they could never tell their families what they really do. That ends tomorrow. Dr. Chen's tablet chimed softly. The Empire's latest message demanded Earth begin dismantling its conventional military forces as a show of submission. Perfect. They think we're rolling over, Wu said, allowing herself a grim smile. By this time tomorrow, they'll realize their mistake. Humanity isn't surrendering. We're springing the trap. In orbit, the Empire's crystalline ships glittered like arrogant jewels against the black of space, their crews confident in their absolute superiority. None of them noticed the subtle distortions in the space around them, the ghostly shadows that moved between their formations with deliberate purpose. Earth's hidden fleet was already in position. 20 years of preparation, sacrifice, and secrecy were about to pay off. The Empire was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology, it was patience. Fleet Admiral Thomas Rivera stood in the control room of the UES Nightshade, Earth's first hybrid tech vessel, watching his crew perform their final systems check. The ship's living walls pulsed with a subtle blue glow, responding to their combined biometric signatures. Unlike the Empire's rigid crystal ships, Earth's vessels were practically alive. Neural sync at 98%, Lieutenant Patel reported from her station. Her fingers danced across controls that were more organic than mechanical. The ship feels eager, sir. Rivera nodded. They all felt it. 20 years of development had produced something unprecedented, ships that formed true symbiotic relationships with their crews. The Empire would never understand. They saw technology as something to be controlled, dominated. Humanity had taken a different path. Admiral, Dr. Chen's voice came through on a secure channel. We've confirmed a critical discovery about Empire tech. Their crystalline computing has a fundamental weakness: it can't adapt to quantum irregularities. Their systems are too perfect, too rigid. And ours? Rivera asked, already suspecting the answer. Our organic systems thrive on chaos. The more unpredictable the situation, the better they perform. It's why the Empire can't detect us, we're too messy, too alive to show up on their pristine sensors. In orbit, the Empire continued their methodical occupation. Their ships moved in perfect, predictable patterns, each crystal vessel identical to the last. They never varied their tactics because they'd never needed to. Why innovate when you've already achieved perfection? Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, General Wu convened the final briefing. Holographic displays showed the positions of every Empire ship. Their crystalline arrogance laid bare informations that hadn't changed in millennia. They expect us to submit, Wu addressed the assembled commanders. Their entire strategy relies on overwhelming force and psychological intimidation. But they've never faced an enemy who spent 20 years preparing specifically for them. The tactical display shifted, showing the positions of Earth's hidden fleet. 50 ships, each unique, each adapted to its crew and mission. Where Empire vessels were uniform and predictable, Earth's ships had evolved into specialized predators. The Nightshade-class vessels will strike their command and control nodes, Wu continued. The Phantom-class will target their supply lines. And the Wraith-class. She allowed herself a small smile. The Wraith-class will show them why humanity's greatest stories have always been about ghosts. In her private quarters, Lieutenant Patel reviewed the neural sync data one last time. The ship's consciousness brushed against her mind, sharing her anticipation. Unlike Empire crews, who remained coldly separate from their vessels, Earth's pilots had formed deep bonds with their ships. Each vessel had developed its own personality, its own quirks and strengths. The Nightshade's personality was particularly fitting, patient, stealthy, but with an underlying predatory instinct that matched its crew perfectly. They'd spent years learning to think as one, to move with the liquid grace that made them invisible to Empire sensors. 6 hours to deadline, the ship's organic AI whispered in her mind. It didn't speak in words so much as feelings, images, shared purpose. The Empire demanded Earth's surrender by dawn. Dawn would bring something very different. In New York, the Empire's ambassador prepared his acceptance speech, confident in humanity's submission. Above him, crystal ships filled the sky in a display of overwhelming force. Their sensors swept the planet constantly, searching for any sign of resistance. They found nothing because they were looking for the wrong things. They searched for metal and energy signatures, for radiation and heat. They never thought to look for the subtle flutter of artificial synapses, the whisper-quiet pulse of organic computers that thought in quantum possibilities. In the darkness between their ships, Earth's fleet waited. Not with the cold perfection of crystal, but with the patience of a living thing about to strike. Dawn was coming. And with it, the Empire would learn that perfection was no match for evolution. The Empire's patrol cruiser Eternal Clarity never saw what hit it. One moment it was maintaining its perfect orbit over Singapore, its crystal sensors sweeping space with mathematical precision. The next, its command deck went dark as something impossible happened, its flawless crystalline system simply stopped. Neural interface complete, Lieutenant Patel whispered aboard the Nightshade. Through her connection with the ship, she felt its satisfaction as organic tendrils of corrupted code spread through the Empire vessel systems. Not so perfect now. The Empire ship hung dead in space, its crew frantically trying to understand what was happening. Their sensors showed nothing, their backup systems detected nothing, and their distress calls went nowhere. 20 years of studying the ancient vessel had taught humanity exactly how to turn the Empire's technological perfection against itself. First Blood, Admiral Rivera transmitted to the fleet. Execute Phase 2. Across Earth's orbit, shadow ships emerged from their hiding places. Not with dramatic revelations or flashy technology, but with the subtle grace of predators who'd waited a lifetime for this moment. Empire ships began going dark one by one, their crews experiencing something they'd never known before, fear. In the Antarctic Command Center, General Wu watched the tactical display with fierce satisfaction. Status report? 37 Empire ships neutralized, her aide reported. No casualties on either side. Their crystal tech is even more vulnerable to our hybrid systems than we expected. The biological components are infecting them, for lack of a better word. Dr. Chen nodded, watching the data streams. Their systems can't adapt. They've spent so long perfecting their technology that they've engineered out any ability to handle chaos. Our organic computers are like a virus to them. The Empire's response was predictably rigid. Their remaining ships formed up into defensive arrays, geometric patterns that had served them for millennia. Beautiful, perfect, and utterly useless against an enemy that didn't play by their rules. Aboard the Eternal Clarity, the Empire commander was experiencing something entirely new: humiliation. His ship's crystal displays flickered with alien code that seemed to mock their vaunted superiority. The message repeated in their own language. Pride goes before a fall. The Nightshade slipped between two Empire destroyers, its living hull adapting to match the background radiation of space perfectly. Lieutenant Patel felt the ship's predatory anticipation through their neural link. This wasn't just combat, it was evolution in action. Humanity's adaptability against the Empire's rigid perfection. "They're trying to regroup," Rivera observed as the Empire fleet attempted to consolidate around their flagship. Just as predicted. "Lieutenant, signal the Wraith Squadron. Time to show them why humans still tell ghost stories." The Wraith-class ships were humanity's masterpiece of biodigital engineering. Unlike the other vessels, they could phase their matter slightly out of normal spacetime, becoming literal ghosts. As they approached the Empire's flagship, they weren't just invisible, they were partially in another dimension. The Empire's ambassador, watching from his chambers in New York, felt his first tremor of doubt as reports flooded in. The humans weren't just resisting, they were winning. His perfect crystal displays showed impossible readings, ships that weren't ships, technology that was somehow alive, and strategies that defied every principle of civilized warfare. "Impossible," he whispered as another squadron of Empire ships went dark. "They were primitives. We saw their technology. We measured their capabilities." In orbit, Lieutenant Patel allowed herself a grim smile as the Nightshade prepared to strike again. "Funny thing about humans," she transmitted to the nearest Empire vessel. "We've got a long history of playing possum." The Empire was learning, too late, that they hadn't discovered Earth. Earth had caught them. The Empire struck back with the fury of wounded pride. "Multiple energy signatures," Lieutenant Patel reported, her voice tight as the Nightshade's neural interface flooded her with tactical data. "They're targeting civilian centers." Admiral Rivera watched in horror as crystal ships appeared over major cities worldwide, their weapons charging with terrifying purpose. The Empire had decided if they couldn't control Earth, they would punish it. The beam that struck Mumbai was meant to level the city. Instead, it met something unexpected, a shimming shield of quantum energy, reverse-engineered from the ancient ship's defensive systems. The blast scattered harmlessly into the upper atmosphere, painting the sky with aurora-like ribbons of light. "Shield network holding," Dr. Chen reported from the Antarctic base. "All 23 cities protected. Though I don't know how long we can maintain this level of power distribution." The Empire's ambassador, watching from his command post, felt his first real emotion in decades: rage. "You dare?" His transmission boomed across all frequencies. "You think your primitive deceptions can stand against the full might of the Empire? We built the quantum gates that connect galaxies. We shaped stars into weapons. We are eternal." "Funny thing about eternity," General Wu responded calmly. "It has a way of ending." She nodded to her communications officer. "Send the signal. All ships, execute Operation Lazarus." Aboard the Nightshade, Lieutenant Patel felt the ship's excitement through their neural link. This was the moment they'd trained for, the maneuver that would demonstrate just how far humanity had advanced beyond the Empire's expectations. "All hands," Rivera's voice echoed through the ship. Prepare for dimensional shift. The Empire watched in disbelief as Earth's fleet seemed to disintegrate, their biodigital ships breaking apart into clouds of quantum particles. It looked like a catastrophic malfunction, a mass suicide. It was anything but. The quantum clouds swirled through space like cosmic storms, passing straight through the Empire's perfect crystal shields as if they didn't exist. When they reformed, Earth's ships were inside the Empire's defensive formations. Impossible, the ambassador whispered. The energy requirements alone. That's the thing about organic technology, Dr. Chen's voice came through on his private channel. It doesn't follow your rules. Life finds a way. The battle that followed would be studied for centuries to come. Empire ships, trapped in their rigid formations, found themselves fighting an enemy that could literally flow around their defenses. The hybrid ships of Earth's fleet moved like living things, adapting and evolving their tactics in real time. But victory came at a cost. The Nightshade shuddered as an Empire blast caught its port side. Through the neural link, Patel felt the ship's pain as if it were her own. Biological systems damaged, she reported through gritted teeth. The ship is hurting. Can you maintain position? Rivera asked, knowing what he was asking of both ship and pilot. Patel's hands merged with her console, her consciousness reaching deeper into the ship's living systems. We're not done yet, she whispered, feeling the Nightshade's fierce agreement. The ship says, it's just a flesh wound. Across Earth's orbit, similar scenes played out as humanity's fleet engaged in combat that looked more like a dance than traditional space warfare. Ships phased in and out of normal space, organic systems adapted to damage in real time, and the rigid perfection of Empire technology proved increasingly inadequate against such fluid opposition. In the Antarctic Command Center, Wu and Chen watched the tactical displays with growing hope. The Empire's formations were breaking down, their perfect symmetry shattered by an enemy that refused to fight according to their ancient rules of warfare. They're falling back, Wu observed as the Empire fleet began a systematic retreat from Earth orbit. But this isn't over. Chen nodded grimly. No. This was just their vanguard fleet. We've bloodied their nose, but now they'll come in force, Wu finished. How long do we have? Based on their quantum gate technology? 12 hours at most before their main battle fleet arrives. Chen studied the casualty reports with concern. We've surprised them twice now. They won't underestimate us again. Aboard the Nightshade, Patel felt her ship's systems slowly healing, the organic technology that made Earth's fleet unique working to repair the damage. Through their neural link, she sensed something new in the ship's consciousness, not just determination, but pride. They had proven humanity's worth among the stars. Now they had to prove they could survive there. They came out of quantum space like an avalanche of stars, the Empire's main battle fleet, 10,000 ships strong. Their crystal hulls blocked out the sun in a display of force meant to crush any remaining hope of resistance. In the Antarctic Command Center, General Wu stood silent as the tactical display filled with enemy signatures. Dr. Chen's hands trembled as he ran the calculations. Even with our advantages, we're outnumbered 200 to 1. The Empire's new commander didn't bother with ultimatums or demands. The time for words had passed. Their first strike targeted Earth's orbital defense grid, overwhelming the quantum shields through sheer force. Mumbai's barriers fell first, then London's, then Beijing's. They've adapted their tactics, Rivera observed grimly from the Nightshade's bridge. No more perfect formations. They're using chaos against us now. Lieutenant Patel felt the ship's unease through their neural link. The Empire fleet was moving erratically, unpredictably, making it harder for Earth's vessels to maintain their stealth advantage. They're learning, she whispered. That's the problem with showing your hand, Wu said, watching another defense grid fall. The enemy adapts. She turned to Chen. Tell me Project Prometheus is ready. The scientist's face was grave. It's ready. But the cost will be less than the cost of defeat. Wu's voice was steel. Begin the evacuation of surface cities. All military personnel to deep bunkers. And get me a secure channel to the fleet. The Empire struck Earth's surface with methodical precision. Not to destroy, they wanted the planet intact, but to demonstrate the futility of resistance. Crystal ships descended into the atmosphere, their weapons carving messages of submission into empty croplands and deserts. Aboard the Nightshade, Rivera received Wu's transmission. His face paled as she outlined Project Prometheus. The risk dash is necessary, Wu cut him off. You've seen the projections. We either end this now, or we become a footnote in their archaeological records. The Nightshade shuddered as nearby explosions buffeted its adaptive hull. Through the neural interface, Patel felt the ship's determination match her own. They had trained for this moment, prepared for it, but the reality was still overwhelming. All ships, Rivera's voice was steady despite his fear. Fall back to secondary positions. Prepare for Protocol Omega. In New York, the Empire's original ambassador watched the battle with growing satisfaction. The humans had fought well, surprisingly well, but the natural order was reasserting itself. Their clever tricks and hybrid abominations would soon be nothing but cautionary tales in Imperial archives. Then his sensors detected something strange. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, Dr. Chen initiated Project Prometheus. The facility's organic computers pulsed with power as they began the most ambitious hack in human history, an attempt to rewrite the fundamental protocols of the Empire's quantum gate network. If this works, Chen explained to Wu, we can turn their own transportation system against them. Every gate in their empire will become a trap, Wu finished. But the power requirements will drain Earth's entire energy grid. We'll be defenseless for 72 hours afterward. Chen met her eyes. If this fails, it won't. Wu's faith in human ingenuity remained unshaken. Lieutenant Patel? Aboard the Nightshade, Patel's consciousness merged deeper with her ship than ever before. Every hybrid vessel in Earth's fleet was connecting, forming a vast neural network that would channel power from the planet's core itself. The Empire commander noticed the energy buildup too late. His sensors registered something impossible. The humans were accessing the quantum gate protocols, rewriting the very fabric of spacetime that the Empire had thought they alone could control. Stop them, he ordered, but his perfect crystal ships suddenly found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't predict, and couldn't understand. Earth's fleet danced through their formations like ghosts, each ship moving with the fluid grace of living things while channeling impossible amounts of energy back to the Antarctic facility. The sky began to burn with quantum fire. Humanity's darkest hour was about to become its brightest dawn, or its final twilight. Project Prometheus lit up the sky like a new sun. Through the Nightshade's neural interface, Lieutenant Patel felt the combined consciousness of Earth's entire fleet, 50 ships, 50 crews, all linked in a vast biological network channeling energy from the planet's core. The power coursed through their hybrid systems, transforming their vessels into conduits for something that even the ancient ship's builders hadn't imagined possible. Energy levels at maximum, Dr. Chen reported from the Antarctic facility, his voice strained. Initiating quantum gate override, now. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The Empire fleet continued their assault, their crystal ships beautiful and terrible against Earth's atmosphere. Then reality itself began to twist. Every quantum gate in the Empire's vast network activated simultaneously. But instead of creating passages through spacetime, they created something else, mirrors. Perfect reflections of the Empire's own rigid, crystalline nature. What have you done? The Empire commander's transmission carried genuine fear for the first time. His sensors showed him the impossible, Every gate in their network was reflecting their own energy back at them, creating a cascade of quantum feedback that threatened to shatter the very foundations of their technology. Admiral Rivera stood on the Nightshade's bridge, watching as the Empire's perfect crystal ships began to resonate with their own reflected energy. "We studied your technology for 20 years, he transmitted. Not to copy it, to understand its limitations. Your pursuit of perfection made you predictable. And vulnerability always follows predictability. The Empire fleet tried to retreat, but their own gates betrayed them. Each attempt to escape simply created new resonance patterns, new reflections of their own rigid perfection. Their crystal ships began to sing with destructive harmonies. Through the neural link, Patel felt the Nightshade's fierce joy as they watched their enemy face the consequences of their own inflexibility. The ship's consciousness brushed against her mind with an ancient human phrase, "Pride goes before a fall." In the Antarctic Command Center, General Wu and Dr. Chen watched as their gambit played out across space. The Empire's mighty armada was being undone not by superior firepower or advanced technology, but by the simple fact that they had never learned to adapt. Their entire civilization is built on the belief that they achieved perfection, Chen explained, watching the sensor readings. They stopped evolving, stopped adapting. But life never stops evolving. The Empire commander made one final transmission before his fleet began their surrender. "How?" he asked simply. "You were primitives. We measured your technology. We saw your limits." "You saw what we wanted you to see," Wu replied. "Humanity learned long ago that true strength isn't about being perfect. It's about being adaptable. Your empire has stood unchanged for millennia. We've survived by constantly changing, constantly evolving. That's the power you never understood." One by one, the Empire's ships powered down their weapons. Their crystal hulls, no longer resonating with destructive energy, gleamed quietly in Earth's orbit. The invasion was over. Aboard the Nightshade, Patel felt her ship's consciousness begin to withdraw from the neural network as the fleet disconnected. But before it did, she caught one last impression, not of victory or pride, but of growth. The ship, like humanity itself, had evolved through this conflict. In the aftermath, as Earth began its recovery and the Empire's representatives approached with peace treaties, Dr. Chen made a discovery in the ancient ship's databanks. The message they had found 20 years ago, "They will come. Be ready," had a second part they could only now decrypt. "And when they do, show them that perfection is not the end of evolution, but its enemy. For in the cosmos, it is not the strongest who survive, nor the most perfect. It is those who can adapt, who can change, who can see their own flaws as opportunities for growth. This is humanity's gift, and its destiny among the stars." General Wu stood at the United Nations 1 month later, addressing not just humanity's representatives but emissaries from across the galaxy. The Empire's defeat had awakened something in the cosmic community, a recognition that perhaps perfection wasn't the ultimate goal of civilization. "We don't claim to be perfect," she concluded her speech. "We don't even aspire to be. What we are is adaptable, innovative, and most importantly, alive. Our greatest strength isn't in our technology or our weapons, but in our ability to look at our own imperfections and see possibilities instead of flaws." The Nightshade hung in orbit above, its living hull pulsing gently with bioluminescence. Through the neural link, Patel felt its contentment, its readiness for whatever challenges lay ahead. They had proven that humanity deserved its place among the stars not because they were perfect, but because they would never stop trying to be better. The Empire had sought to perfect the cosmos, to make it rigid and unchanging. Humanity had shown them a different path, one where imperfection was not a weakness but a source of strength, where adaptation was not admission of failure but the key to survival. In the end, the Empire hadn't just been defeated by humanity's hidden fleet. They had been defeated by their own inability to change, to grow, to evolve. And that was the greatest lesson of all.